It's December the 31st, 2014. My goodness, where did this year go? Most of it was on the ocean for me. And this is December the 29th, pictures. This is the Kitkatla. That's about 40 kilometers outside of Prince Rupert. It's a tiny native village. It's very isolated. And the pylons have absolutely nothing on it. Shocking. And such is the trip of 2014. These are the morning pictures at Kitkatla on the 29th. Waking up. Morning. December the 29th, 2014. Zoe just wake up. Good morning, Zoe. We're in Kitkatla. Around a couple of hundred people in the village, I guess. My estimates. Beautiful little spot. And a great morning shot. Everything wide open. See the sun starting to rise in the background. And let me see. Sun's just coming up. It's high tide. I don't know who I am. I'm the guy with the bright jacket on. As the day progresses and I get ready to head out, I'll start dodging out in about an hour or so. And the destination today, now I actually done all the outside of these islands. I'm going to come down around Friday Island and Macaulay Island. As you can see, there's a lot of pictures get taken, and you document everything you can find and everything you see. And the tide is coming down. This is I gotta have to run in and get fuel on the 29th, so I started shooting early, and so as the day progresses through the pictures, the tide gets all the way down. And so it's off to a rocky start, and all we see is the kelp weed today. We don't see another species on the shoreline whatsoever. There's a bit of kelp, bull kelp, hanging off a tree trunk that washed up on the shoreline. And there is some bull kelp out front, so I withdraw the previous comment. That's two species. It's not like it's healthy or nothing, but it's there. And so let's run down through some of this stuff for everybody. And we had a really interesting day. Christie Island, you can see the path the boat is taking. It came in, went inside, came out around, and it was 800 foot. You can see the distance of the marker, so that's around 600 foot to come in here, for instance. So you can use, whenever you're looking at the detail of GPS shots, and I take a GPS shot of everywhere new that I go, and right behind it will be the rock in particular that the boat is facing at, basically. So the boat right now is facing in on that rock. You can see the bow of the boat. See how the bow is facing in? Well, that's actually real time on this. And so that's the rock, and you can see there's 0, 0, 0, 0. And that's that little island. And if you can see the rock in this picture or not. No. But the tide is coming down for a couple hours now, and so it's starting to move down. And I'm waiting for the tide to come all the way down. There's that rock I was just looking for. I'm coming in on that island, but you got another rock showing up over there, and the rocks are naked. They got a little tiny bit of that kelp weed, and that's all I've seen, and a little bit of bull kelp. As the day progresses, Rolfe Islands, I went out there and went through the Rolfe Islands. There's a lot of islands out there. Once again, on the 800 foot scale at the bottom of it, you can see the distance, and that will be 800 feet. So I'm leaving that island now and heading over to Rolfe that we were just looking at. We'll hit a couple of pictures of that. And Rolfe is naked. Gotta love those 20 million pixels. Thank you, Paulette, for that camera. It's unimaginable what we've accomplished with that camera. just good use. I just wanted you to know it got lots of use. And so, rocks are naked, no matter where I'm going. We'll move down through the pictures. There's a lot of pictures taken in that island group, and we'll go down to the next group. And at the next group, so you can see the tracking of the boat. It's going up around these islands. And once again, you might see some algae at high, not in that picture. There's a couple of rocks where they had a bit of algae up high, really strange looking algae. But you can see how everything is stripped. The barnacles look like sawdust in a sense, where there's nothing healthy or alive really. But the little tiny bit clinging on in these crevices, and they're important. And you see, I always check the crevices because that's where the creatures will hide, so that other creatures can't get them. It's a good spot for the animals to hide. And so this is the outside edge of the Rolf Island group. Lone seagull, hey buddy. And not much else, obviously. The tide is still coming down, and the day is progressing. It's a long day. There's an eagle on the lighthouse. And that lighthouse is over here. Make sure I give you a little tiny indication. I left Rolf Island groups. That's that down there. Rolf Island. Hi, Rolf. And we head over to Hankin Rock. That's Macaulay Island up here. And we got a good story about that today. And I'll get to that pretty soon. Don't want to have too big of a file. And I wanted to show you a picture of the bird. He was up. I'm not sure if I actually got it. This is where he was turning his head. I was trying to get a shot of, profile shot of him. And he's only going to let you get so close anyway. But he's Mother Nature. He's out there in the middle of nowhere. Beautiful creature. Absolutely fantastic. I don't know if you can translate how nice these shots actually came out, but just click, 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 and trying to get a decent shot, and they all came out good. That's why I can say and move on. That rock, anyway, I got up close and personal with that filler, because why not? And those rocks are naked. The tide's coming down quite a bit. Starting to get a really good view. And just that little tiny bit of dead barnacle, everything else is peeled off. You can see how it's just stripped off. And everything on the entire coastline is going to be stripped off. We have to document it, and that's our job. And it's going to take us a couple of months, and it's hellish to go do this every day. That's about 40 kilometers out of Rupert. And let me move on down to the pictures. Let me zoom in on that rock. Look, polished. You can't really see it. The water's still going over it. But we'll keep going here. And I start to move over towards Macaulay Island group. Let me get back here and keep context of what we're doing here. And that's a different island. And I can't remember. We'll probably got another shot of it, but a wide shot will show you there's nothing there anyway. I don't know why I'm going to bother zooming in. But there's a clue about what I'm going to show you coming up in a bit. You can start to see a few birds showing up there. And yeah, that's Macaulay Island. This is where I found the first flock of birds since May. But they weren't the migratory animals we were looking for, the feeders. That's what we're looking for, feeding flocks of birds. You should see it in every direction you look. No matter where you to, you should see at least a few flocks of birds diving down and feeding, and I haven't seen any since May. And this, I actually found a flock of birds on the 29th of December. This is at Macaulay Island. Macaulay Island right there. And this is the first time I've seen birds since May surround the boat. And it's all seagulls. There's a few penguins, snowbirds, and stuff like that. But this is the first time I've seen. So I stopped the boat and just sit here. I'm going to sit here for, oh, I've been here for a few minutes, but I'm going to sit here for a while. And this is unbelievable. Finally found a flock of birds. They're seagulls, not migratory birds, not the residential birds, but at least it's a flock of birds. Right, folks? And there's nothing on the rocks for them to eat. And as we move down the coastline, the sun's up. I thought that was a good shot. Oh yeah, they got there's a lot of frost coming off the ocean. That's why I shot that shot, trying to get a good shot. I actually went right in there, but you can only get in so close, and you'll tear the leg off the boat if you're not careful. It's a very dangerous spot. And the map will probably show us. No. But anyway, yeah, the spot you're looking at was over here. The frost on the water. No, in here. So it's a very sketchy little spot to go in. So this is Macaulay Island. Hankins Point is in there. I went all the way into the edge, and you can't drive over this stuff only at high tide. It's extremely scary when you look over the side of the boat. You know you're in trouble, so you don't go in there. I'm making a turn, and you can actually see the boat. We'll make that turn, and I shot this shoreline and went in through each of these that I could. So I got 600 or 700, 800, 900 pictures that day on the 29th. And I'll get the side with the sunshine. The tide's down pretty good now, and there's a bit of kelp weed, and that's what you find symmetrically throughout the coastline. And of the 600 algae, you're only going to find a handful. Everything else is missing. 480 species of worms, all the snails. You're lucky to find them anywhere. If you do, it's just a tiny, tiny percentage of a percent of what should be there. Normally every rock would be, if you found snails or limpets or periwinkles, the rocks would be covered in them, completely buried in them, and there's nothing there. And then down Vancouver Island, there was more life than there is in the wild west coast itself. So that's extremely shocking that there's less up here than there is. And so as we go down the coastline, down through these island groups, and up to that point, you can see I left that big island, watched the birds were right here. There's a GPS for everybody if they want to look it up. And then I went in through the bay up to the end of it and came out around it and shot that shoreline. You can hear Zoe dreaming in the background. That's the bottom of the bay, I guess. No, it's the top of the bay where just before I come around the point, these little nooks you've seen in the charts earlier. And as you can see, there's literally zero there, except a little bit of kelpweed. At 9,600 species. You don't see any sea anemones out of the water. I did see sea anemones below the water. You gotta realize it took us 2 months to put the operation together to take on the North Coast. This is day 3 of the North Coast. And I spent 3 days out there on the ocean, and I came back in to get fuel. And I'll start heading down the coastline now. The weather broke after sitting here for 4 weeks, and that was shocking. Bad weather. Everybody here talked about the weather when it finally broke. The fuel docks, because I had used them for showers and that, were telling me that everybody, Dana, is mentioning how the weather, that was the strangest weather pattern for 4 weeks they've seen. Where storm after storm after storm, everybody was pinned down. So it wasn't just me, but it just confirms it for everybody. And so the shoreline is completely naked in that entire stretch of coastline. That's a huge stretch of coastline I covered. And once again, these bright rocks. And let me get a shot of where we're to for you so you can give you some context of it. Right, that's one of these nooks, and I go in these nooks, and you're right in the pile here right now, and you're going in there. It's a sketchy job, you know. It's not very wide in there, but as you go in there, you're trying to find these pockets, and I find none. There's that little bit of bull kelp. It's not very healthy, and a bit of kelp weed shows up on a few rocks, like right there. There's a bit of kelp weed up high because the tide's pretty low now. It's a day, like I say, as the day progresses. And at the very lowest tides, you see a bit of kelpweed, but up high, there's nothing. Everything is missing. That's where life in British Columbia thrived. Every square millimeter of the high tide to the low tide line, and even above the high tide line, right? Even up high, where the high tide line would be, is higher than that, would be covered in an indigenous array of plants and flora and faunas, and also other marine life that can live out of the water but needs the water spray to come up there, are all missing, completely, utterly missing. We generally looking at the tidal zones because that's, you know, why would you look at tuna? Why wouldn't you look at the tidal zones? The tuna are way up the food chain, salmon way up the food chain, whales way up the food chain. It bioaccumulated, and it takes a long time for the effects to show up. And so what you got to realize is that you should look at the filter feeders, the microscopic animals, the stuff that lives in the tidal zones, the very nursery of the ocean. That's what the institutions should be doing, exactly what I'm doing. And I shouldn't say I'm doing, but Dana and the Hounds of Fukushima, the people that want a true study done, we're tired of looking, and so together we went out and done this, and are doing this and continue to do this. We still have a few months to go to finish off the coastline. We're headed south down the coast, and there's 26,000 islands up here. Excuse me. And I'm heading in to these little nooks and crannies, and just a shot through the window, you can see all the fuel cans now are empty and piled up on the bow. And it's the end of a 3-day hunt out there, floating around by myself. It's very difficult to do all of this by yourself. It's unimaginably amount of energy to do everything that I'm doing, and there's no way to convey it for people. I don't know how I could possibly convey it, but it truly is a miracle in every sense that we put an operation together that can handle this day in, day out, every day. 2 sets of photos. I'm not even sure what's in this one. Let me have a quick boat. And I'll have to look up that GPS because I can't remember. Maybe I got another GPS I can look up. And like I say, it probably took, I know it took 601. Yeah, so I'm still at Macaulay Island. Oh yeah, okay, I'm moving up there. And then, but I also got more pictures that I wanted to get to just for the end of the video. Part 2, there was another card I stuck in. And whatever that GPS was, it'll be showing up here. Okay, I'm in, that's almost the end of it. Maybe this will give us some context. And it's not really Macaulay Island, but it doesn't tell me. It's not a wide enough angle. Now over here, there's actually quite a lot on this rock anyway of kelpweed. There was a few, that's right, there was a few rocks. There's a whole bunch of these islands. These rocks will all be underwater. And so there was a bit of kelpweed there, but there was nothing else there. And anybody remembers my last video from the 28th, I found 5 starfish after hitting the same amount of islands that day. It's around 30 islands. And all of them were melting and deformities and dying, every friggin' one of them. And so that was shocking. And so this is where I called it quits, I guess, at the end of the day. And this is where I'll pick up when I head back out. And at the very lowest tide, like I was saying earlier in the video, you start finding a bit of kelp weed. There should be 600 algae. There should be 78 species of sea anemones, 64 species of starfish. You know, very visible stuff. And then the worms, each of these little rocks should be covered in all kinds of critters and creatures and all kinds of invertebrates living in all the nooks and crannies, and all the water is retained on the rocks themselves from all the other algae that are attached to it, and sea anemones. And then all the snails and limpets, and just the smorgasbord of life that is that coastline. Everything here should be, every square millimeter should be full of life. You shouldn't be able to get out of the boat anywhere, and you would break your neck trying to get up to the high tide line. That's how it's supposed to be, and that's why this coastline was considered just incredible, because it was so much life that you struggled to get up to a high tide line. But when you got to the high tide line, it was full of life too, out of the water, right there at that edge. There's a very distinct, you see all the green, these sea anemones, these big, huge sea anemones that live out of the water, but right on the edge, and you would see all the kelp plants, not kelp plants, but all the plants that coexist at the edges of the salt water, and the entire coastline was extremely vibrant. And then all year long there would be all the sea fleas and and insects that can live in this environment. You know, 365 days a year, this is full of life, because British Columbia is rainforest, and they have a huge tide exchange. And year after year after year, I've dove this coastline. It's extremely dangerous to try to go up to the high tide line. And now in British Columbia, you can go ashore in British Columbia, anywhere, and it's not a problem to walk up. See, that's just one algae. If there were 600 other algae here, you can imagine how slippery that would be. That's the point I'm trying to make to everybody. And at the end of the day, at the lowest tides, you start to find just one algae. And I truly mean there's just one algae there. That's it, at a 600. And you would normally expect anywhere in the tidal pools here to find 400, 500, 600 species. And we find one species all day that day, and a bit of bull kelp is 2 species. But that was it. No starfish, no periwinkles, no snails, no mollusks. Just naked shorelines. And I'm just going on and on. The coastline till we document it. And then nobody can deny this very shortly. That's a fact. Once again, that is a melted starfish from December 28. You can go back and see that little short video I made of it. And outside of that, 2015 is here tomorrow. And I tore off another prop yesterday. It just disintegrated one of the 3 wings of the prop. Just let go. And have to go all the way to Prince George, and they got to order one in and ship it up to a place here in Prince Rupert to get my hands on a spare prop. And so I got one prop, and he's mangled already, because I'm in that rock pile all day long, and there's nothing safe about what we do. 2 days before that, I went up on the rock pile in here further, and had to rock the boat. Tide was coming up, so it was okay. But if you end up on a rock when the tide's going down, you're gonna have a very bad day, folks. And so these props are important because they have the power. A good prop has the power to pull you off, but a broken prop doesn't have that torque, and so it's difficult to do the things we're doing as it is. And I'm just going on and on now about a prop. The reality of it is, you got to realize 24 days or 28 days waiting for the weather to break, and when we get out there, everything is missing. There's more life down island than there is up down towards Vancouver Island, than there is in the wild north. Not good at all. Hugs for everybody. Thank you, everybody, for all you've done and continue to do, and for supporting us. And that, just by sharing you down, keep the goal in mind. That's what I'm doing every day. No matter what happens, I don't get down. I keep that goal in mind, that we get that data, and they can't hide this anymore. Is that not more important than pettiness? Is that not more important than anything else in your life? Because it should be. It's only going to take us a few months, and we're going to get that data. We're already getting it, and it's just devastating. And I don't know what to say to people anymore. You know, if you don't want to really appreciate the danger that this entire planet is in, and the urgency of what we've discovered collectively throughout this entire coastline, the devastation, the implications, is very grave for this planet, folks. Certainly for every species on it. The extinction, this is an extinction level event, complete. Hugs.